You are not lonely because you lack people. You are lonely because your biology is being hacked. Your soul has been meticulously harvested. It is no longer a sovereign entity of blood and memory, but a ledger of preferences, a stream of telemetry data processed in the lightless basements of Northern California. You are witnessing the final commodification of the human interior, the ancient, atavistic yearning for the pack, the bone-deep necessity to be seen, known, and held, has been distilled into a liquid asset. We have traded the messy, unpredictable heat of physical proximity for a filtered simulation, a digital purgatory where intimacy is a product and you are the raw material. This is the ontological collapse. We inhabit a landscape of curated ghosts, where every gesture of affection is mediated by a cold, black rectangle of glass. This isn't poetry. This is what your nervous system believes about survival. Consider the social baseline theory. Your brain, evolved over 500,000 years of survival, treats the presence of other humans as a physiological default. To be alone is to be in danger. Your neural architecture assumes the proximity of the herd to regulate the metabolic cost of existence. When you are isolated, your body enters a state of high alert entropy. The cortisol rises, the heart labors, the brain screams for the safety of the group. The algorithm has hacked this survival mechanism. It offers you a counterfeit proximity. It provides the visual and auditory markers of connection without the metabolic relief of actual presence. You are starving at a feast of images. The mechanism is a brutal dopaminergic circuit. It is a leash of chemical fire. Every notification, that sharp electric ping, is a simulated pulse of social validation. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of your reason, is a besieged fortress, falling daily to the relentless bombardment of variable rewards. You do not check your phone. You perform a ritual of genuflection. The thumb swipe is the new prayer. Each scroll is a gamble in a casino that never closes, a search for the ephemeral hit of neurochemical approval that tells you, for a fraction of a second, that you still exist in the eyes of others. But the dopamine is hollow. It is a phantom nutrient. It stimulates the craving without ever providing the satiety. You are trapped in a loop of escalating hunger, chasing the ghost of a feeling that the screen can never truly provide. Look at the individual caught in this web. They sit in the calcified silence of a modern apartment, surrounded by the artifacts of a life they are too distracted to inhabit. Their heart rate fluctuates with the arrival of a like. Their emotional stability is anchored to a sequence of ones and zeros. This is not connection, it is a synchronized neurosis. The neuroscientists observe the spikes in the ventral striatum, the same region that lights up for cocaine or a winning hand at poker. The brain cannot distinguish between the warmth of a mother's gaze and the blue light flicker of a stranger's comment. It is a biological hijack. The attachment system, designed for the survival of the species, is now being used to keep you staring at an advertisement for 30 seconds longer. The cost is a slow, necrotic decay of the self. we see the markers of this epochal drift in the micro-fluctuations of anxiety that define the modern morning. The first act of the day is not a breath, but a scan. You check the glass to see if you have survived the night in the digital mind of the collective. Sleep is disrupted by the blue light glow of a phantom world. Emotional volatility becomes the baseline. We are losing the ability to tolerate the silence of our own company, for silence is where the realization of our isolation begins to itch. The architecture of the digital world is designed to prevent that itch from being scratched. It offers an endless scroll, a river of content that flows directly into the fissures of your boredom. But at 2 a.m, the illusion cracks. The room is cold. The air is stale. You are staring at a screen that reflects nothing but the hollows of your own eyes. You scroll through the lives of others, the curated, polished, and dishonest versions of people you used to know. And the realization hits with the weight of a falling mountain. The feed is not a window. It was a mirror. It does not show you your friends. It shows you the precise shape of your own loneliness. The more connected you become, the more profound the desolation. You are a node in a network of solitary confinement. We have built a civilization that optimizes for the reach of a signal while destroying the depth of the resonance. We are hyper-connected and utterly alone. The social fabric has been shredded and rewoven into a net that catches our attention but lets our humanity slip through the mesh. We are living in a state of epistemological crisis where we no longer know how to be present in our own bodies. The screen is a barrier, a layer of digital scar tissue between the self and the world. The data is clear, but the feeling is clearer. It is the sensation of a cold wind blowing through a room that should be full of people. It is the weight of a phone in a pocket that feels like a lead weight. Why do you return to it? Why, when the emptiness is so palpable, does the hand reach for the glass again? Because the alternative is the silence. And in that silence, the brain begins to count the cost of what we have lost. We are addicts of the void, terrified of the very stillness that might save us. We are drowning in information, starving for wisdom, and dying for a touch that doesn't require a data plan. The machine knows your hunger. It fed it to you. The digital architecture has become our new ecology, a synthetic environment where the rules of human biology are no longer respected, only exploited for the extraction of attention. We are the first generation to live in a world where our most intimate social instincts have been weaponized against our own psychological stability. This is the dark trade. This is the bargain we never signed, yet honor every hour of every day. We are the architects of our own digital cage, and we are currently polishing the bars. The soul is a heavy thing to carry in a weightless world. The architecture of your desire is no longer a sovereign territory. It has been quietly annexed, mapped, and strip-mined by a silent, predictive machinery operating in the lightless milliseconds between your pulse and your perception. You are witnessing the final neuro-industrial revolution. The goal is no longer to sell you a product, but to re-engineer the very contours of your instinct. You believe you are making choices, selecting a video, favoring a thought, scrolling by will. You are not. You are being steered through a digital labyrinth by an invisible hand that understands your biological vulnerabilities better than you understand your own blood. This is the ontological surrender of the 21st century. Your preferences are harvested as raw ore, processed through black box logic, and fed back to you in a loop of escalating entropy. The algorithm does not reflect who you are. It dictates who you will become. Beneath the polished glass of your device, there is a mechanism of profound cruelty. The feed ranking systems do not optimize for truth, nor for beauty, nor for the nourishment of the human spirit. They optimize for the duration of the gaze. They are built upon the cold, mathematical principle of variable ratio reinforcement, the same dark alchemy that powers a slot machine in a windowless room. If the rewards of social validation were predictable, the habit would wither and die. But the algorithm is precise in its randomness. It knows exactly when to withhold the dopamine and when to flood the synapse. It keeps you suspended in a state of neural purgatory, a hypervigilant twitching for the next signal. This uncertainty is the fuel. It triggers a visceral, atavistic craving for the notification that tells the amygdala it is safe, it is seen, and it is valued. You are a biological entity trapped in a cage of fluctuating rewards. The house always wins. Your brain is a 500,000-year-old piece of hardware running predatory, high-frequency software. To the evolutionary mind, social exclusion is not a bruise, it is a death sentence. The amygdala, that ancient almond-shaped cluster of gray matter, cannot distinguish between a predator in the tall grass and a post that receives zero engagement. Both are perceived as existential threats to the self. When the notification light remains dark, the body reacts with a subtle, necrotic stress. Cortisol seeps into the prefrontal cortex like acid. The breath shallows. The ego begins to fray at the margins. This is the social threat assessment loop, working in a state of permanent overdrive, scanning for signs of abandonment in a vacuum. We have weaponized the primal fear of the void to ensure that you never, under any circumstances, put the device down. Observe the micro-emotional fluctuations of the digital subject in its natural habitat. A single like from a specific source triggers a surge of euphoria that is as intense as it is chemically hollow. It is a synthetic high that lasts only as long as the screen stays lit. But the inverse is a sudden, sharp descent into desolation. To be ignored by the network is to be erased from the record of the living. This is the fragility of the algorithmic self. Our internal worth has been tethered to a volatile stock market of social metrics, an exchange where the currency is attention and the volatility is total. We see the resulting emotional strain leaking into the physical world like toxic runoff. The sudden, jagged irritability at a family dinner, the inability to find resonance in a partner's touch, the bone-deep exhaustion of a mind that has been sprinting on a treadmill of ghosts. The climax of this psychological siege occurs in the calcified silence of the 2:00 a.m. watch. The phone vibrates. In that one haptic pulse, your entire physiological state is hijacked. You are suspended in the agonizing gap between hope and terror. You reach for the device, your pupils dilating in the blue light glare, your heart hammering a frantic rhythm against your ribs. If the notification is the one you craved, you feel a momentary shivering triumph. If it is not, or if the screen remains a blank, indifferent slab, the void expands until it fills the room. In that precise second, the realization crystallizes. Your internal peace is now a hostage. You have handed the keys to your emotional kingdom to an anonymous line of code that does not care if you thrive, only that you remain tethered to the machine. The online self is a glass figurine, beautiful and transparent, but shattering at the slightest drop in engagement. This is the uncertainty principle of the modern soul. We have built a civilization that optimizes for the reach of the signal while systematically destroying the depth of the resonance. The digital architecture has become a synthetic ecology where the rules of human biology are no longer respected, only exploited for the extraction of attention. We are the first generation to live in a world where our most intimate social instincts have been weaponized against our own neurological stability. It is a bargain of shadow and dust. We are the architects of our own digital purgatory, meticulously polishing the bars of a cage we refuse to leave. The soul is a heavy thing to carry in a world designed to be weightless. If the algorithm can predict your every emotional trigger, and if it can manufacture your desire before you even feel it, then the concept of the individual is dead. We are merely nodes in a vast, shivering web of simulated intimacy. Pause for a second. Notice your body. Your thumb already knows this ritual. The city is an architecture of curated absence. We inhabit a landscape where the concrete and steel are no longer designed to facilitate the gathering of bodies, but the management of ghosts. You walk through these canyons of glass, surrounded by thousands, yet the silence is absolute. This is the ontological fraud of the modern age. Superficial intimacy masquerading as the pack. We have traded the messy, unpredictable heat of the tribe for a sanitized, pixelated simulation that leaves the psyche in a state of permanent, shivering hunger. You are an exile in your own home. You are witnessing the slow, necrotic decay of the human interior, replaced by a digital shroud that promises warmth but delivers only the static hum of a dead television in a sunless room. The social surrogacy hypothesis is the technical manual for our collective desolation. Your brain, a biological relic of the Pleistocene, is being fed a diet of digital phantoms. You form bonds with influencers, glossy, two-dimensional icons who perform a version of humanity that is optimized for the algorithm. You know the intimate details of their morning rituals, the scripted cadence of their vulnerability, the specific brand of coffee that fuels their curated joy. You feel a kinship that is visceral, atavistic, and entirely illusory. It is a parasocial haunting. You are offering your most sacred resource, your attention, to an entity that does not and cannot know you exist. It is a one-way drain of the spirit. The architecture of your devotion is a scaffold built on digital dust. It cannot hold your weight. Beneath the skull, the chemical tragedy unfolds in the darkness of the synapse. The oxytocin pathways, the ancient neural architecture of trust and tactile belonging, are calcified. They require the physical presence of the other, the scent of skin, the micro-adjustments of a gaze, the metabolic warmth of a shared space. The screen provides none of this. It is a vacuum. While the dopamine circuits are screaming in a fever dream of anticipation, the systems of peace and satiety are silent. You are suffering from a profound chemical isolation, a starvation of the soul that no amount of data can remediate. You are consuming the image of water while dying of thirst. The result is a bone-deep entropy, a hunger that eats the host. This is the paradox of our epochal drift. The more hyper-connected the network becomes, the more the individual fractures. We are witnesses to a rising tide of attachment anxiety, a constant, low-level neural hum that whispers of our own obsolescence. We compensate with the rituals of the digital addict. We binge scroll through the highlight reels of strangers to numb the realization of our own stillness. We post to prove we haven't vanished. We compare our internal wreckage to the industrial-grade perfection of a filtered face. It is a necrotic comparison. Every swipe is a needle prick to the ego. Every unreturned message is a micro-death. We are measuring our lives against a light that has no heat. The climax of this epistemological nightmare occurs when the feed stops. Imagine the live stream, a digital deity speaking to 10,000 lonely rooms simultaneously. For an hour, there is the illusion of a collective. There is the heat of the comments, the shared rhythm of the likes, the simulated proximity of the crowd. Then, the broadcast terminates. The screen turns to a flat, indifferent black. In that precise second, the thousands are severed. The silence of the apartment rushes back in, heavier than before. The absence is not merely quiet. It is a violent removal of a surrogate reality. You are left staring at your own reflection in the darkened glass, a digital ghost mourning a phantom bond. The connection was never there. It was a projection, a dream of belonging in a world of mirrors. If we can tether our most profound emotional needs to these flickering shadows, what remains of our capacity for the flesh? We are losing the ability to navigate the friction of real presence. The eyes of another human being are becoming too intense, too unpredictable, too real. We prefer the ghost because we can control the ghost. But the ghost cannot hold us when the night grows cold. We are becoming a species of solitary watchers, huddled around the blue glow of a campfire that provides no heat. The social fabric has been replaced by a digital shroud. We have optimized for the signal, but we have lost the resonance. The city itself has become the physical manifestation of this psychic void. Look at the architecture of our transit, the design of our living spaces, the layout of our public squares. They are no longer built for the collision of souls, but for the efficient movement of isolated units. We are atoms in a vacuum, drifting past one another with our heads bowed to the altar of the handheld light. This is the sensory machinery of the modern city, a mechanism for the management of the lonely. We have built a world where it is possible to live, work, and die without ever truly being touched. The friction of the human has been smoothed away. This is the visceral cost of the digital surrogate. It is a slow-motion collapse of the human interior. We are trading the gold of genuine belonging for the lead of a notification. The trade is complete. The contract is signed in our own neurochemistry. We are the first generation to successfully simulate the presence of others while perfecting the art of being entirely, devastatingly alone. The soul is a heavy thing to carry through a landscape of ghosts. We are drowning in the shallows. The machine knows your name, but it has no face. And as the last light of the screen fades, you are left with the only truth that remains, the sound of your own breath in a room that has forgotten how to speak. This doesn't stay in the mind, it migrates into the body. The air you breathe is saturated with a silent, electromagnetic dread. It is the allostatic load, the cumulative, necrotic wear on the body as it struggles to adapt to the relentless, high-frequency demands of a world that refuses to sleep. You are a biological organism being ground down by a digital friction you cannot see yet feel in the tightening of your jaw and the shallow, frantic vibration of your chest. This is the hidden tax of the hyper-connected existence. Every notification is a microaggression against your nervous system. Every scroll is a gamble with your physiological peace. We are living in a state of permanent, low-grade alarm, a biological purgatory where the off switch has been systematically dismantled by design. Your body is paying a debt your ego didn't know it owed. Consider the neurobiology of this slow-motion collapse. Your body was designed for the acute burst of the hunt, the sudden spike of cortisol to evade a predator, followed by the long, restorative silence of the cave. But the algorithm has abolished the cave. It demands a sustained, unceasing state of vigilance. The cortisol no longer drains away. It accumulates, a slow-moving flood of acidic stress that corrodes the very architecture of your resilience. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of empathy, reason, and your sovereign self, is being starved by a brain that believes it is under constant social siege. The signal from the device is clear. You are not safe. You are never enough. You are failing a test you didn't know you were taking. Observe the markers of this epochal drift. The heart rate spikes not in response to a physical threat, but to the hollow glow of a red bubble on a screen. There are micro tremors in the hand as the thumb hovers over the glass, an atavistic twitch born of digital uncertainty. Stress drives the engagement. The engagement, in turn, amplifies the stress. We seek relief in the very source of our agitation, a necrotic cycle that feeds on its own exhaustion. The sleep you manage to steal is shallow, poisoned by the blue light after images of 1,000 strangers. Insomnia is the new baseline. Emotional volatility is the new social currency. We are losing the ability to feel the resonance of another's pain because we are too busy managing the white noise of our own frantic survival. The self is becoming a cinder. We attempt to fix the machine with the machine. We download mindfulness apps that track our breathing while harvesting our metadata. We embark on digital detoxes that feel like the jagged withdrawal from a high-purity narcotic. They are band-aids on ephemeral bleed. These interventions fail because they treat the symptom while the environment remains predatory. You cannot meditate your way out of a burning building. You cannot find inner peace in an architecture designed to monetize your anxiety. The digital purgatory is not a choice you make. It is the atmosphere you are forced to inhabit. It is a structural violence committed against the human spirit. The climax of this epistemological siege occurs in the crushing stillness of the ordinary. It happens on a Tuesday afternoon under the weight of a curated world that demands a perfection you can no longer simulate. The physical reality shatters. The room tilts. The digital pressure becomes a visceral weight, a density in the lungs that makes it impossible to draw a full breath. This is the mental collapse of the hyper-modern subject. You realize that the self you have built online is a parasite, and it has finally consumed the host. The curated expectations are a cage. The feedback is a whip. You are broken not by a single catastrophe, but by the cumulative weight of 10,000 tiny, digital cuts. The host is dead. The profile remains. This is the existential pivot of our species. If our own biology, the result of 500 million years of rigorous evolutionary selection, is rebelling against the spaces we have created, what hope remains for the future of the soul? We are attempting to run ancient, tribal software on algorithmic hardware that operates at the speed of light. The gap is widening into a chasm. Evolution moves at the pace of a glacier. The algorithm moves at the speed of thought. We are the casualties of this temporal dissonance, caught in the grinding gears of a transition we cannot control. We are the first generation to witness the obsolescence of our own instincts. The question is no longer whether we can adapt, but whether there will be anything recognizably human left once the adaptation is complete. We are being re-engineered for a world of high-stress, low-resonance interaction. We are becoming harder, colder, and more fragmented. The city around us reflects this internal desolation, a landscape of glass and steel designed to facilitate the movement of isolated units, each one vibrating with the same silent electromagnetic dread. We are atoms in a vacuum. We are data points in a storm. The machine does not need you to be happy. It only needs you to be alert. And you are alert. You are wide awake in the middle of the night, staring at the glass, waiting for a signal that will never bring you peace. If our biology is the enemy of our technology, then one of them must break. We are currently witnessing the breaking of the human. The allostatic load is reaching its limit. The fever of the digital age is peaking. We are the architects of a purgatory we no longer know how to exit. The descent is not a fall. It is a slow, steady sinking into the silt of our own making. The soul is a heavy thing to carry through a world that values only the weightless. The final frontier of human sovereignty is not a border on a map, but the architecture of your own reward system. We have entered the era of neuro-industrial resculpting. Your brain, once a wild and unpredictable landscape of biological memory, is being systematically terraformed by the steady, artificial drip of the digital gaze. This is the permanent rewiring of the human interior. Through the mechanism of neuroplasticity, the repeated exposure to hyper-stimulated, low-resolution social cues is not merely changing what you think, it is changing the very hardware of how you feel. We are witnessing a dopamine recalibration of epochal proportions. The reward pathways evolve to find satisfaction in the slow, labor-intensive rituals of tribal bonding are being flattened. They are becoming calcified, responsive only to the sharp, synthetic peaks of the algorithm. We are losing the capacity for resonance in the search for frequency. Consider the individual emerging from this digital saturation, attempting to navigate the jagged terrain of real-world intimacy. It is a visceral, necrotic struggle. To the recalibrated brain, the presence of another human being feels like unshielded radiation. It is too slow, too noisy, too demanding. There is a profound epistemological drift where the messy, unedited friction of a physical encounter is perceived as a system error. We see this in the eyes of those recovering from digital dependency, a state of sensory photophobia where the truth of a human face is too much to bear. They reach for the phantom limb of the device, craving the sanitized safety of the screen. In the absence of the interface, they are paralyzed by the weight of a silence that no longer feels peaceful, but feels like an existential void. This is the new desolation, the inability to be touched by the real. This story does not end in collapse, but recovery is not comfortable. But the brain is a resilient, atavistic machine. Even in the depths of this digital purgatory, the ancient circuits of interpersonal resilience remain, buried under layers of neural silt. To reclaim the self, one must engage in a form of neurological insurgency. It is not enough to simply look away. One must dismantle the predictive governance of the city and the self. We are seeing the emergence of a new counterculture, those who reject the hyper-connected mandate in favor of radical, physical presence. They seek the friction of the world. They demand the metabolic cost of actual connection. They are attempting to restore the dopaminergic baseline through the slow, agonizing work of unmediated living. It is a violent return to the bone-deep reality of the flesh. They are the heretics of the network. The climax of this struggle manifests in the absolute cessation of the signal. The protagonist, a node in a network of unceasing telemetry, finally disconnects. 72 hours of silence. The first 12 are defined by a jagged electric panic, the withdrawal of the neurochemical leash. The phantom vibration of the pocket is a recurring hallucination, a ghostly twitch in a limb that has been severed. By the second day, the cortical noise begins to subside, replaced by a terrifying hollow clarity. The room begins to acquire a weight. The air has a texture. The absence of the screen reveals a vulnerability that is almost unbearable. It is the feeling of being flayed, of having no digital skin to protect the ego from the raw gaze of the world. By the third day, something ancient stirs in the basement of the skull, a latent resilience. The brain, no longer bombarded by the variable rewards of the algorithm, begins to find its own rhythm. The gaze lingers on the grain of a wooden table, the shifting patterns of light on a wall, the complex, non-linear cadence of a bird's song. The world is no longer a backdrop for a post. It is a visceral, demanding reality. The dopamine begins to drip, not from the ping of a notification, but from the simple, profound realization of being alive in a body. It is a shivering, fragile epiphany. The self is not a profile. The soul is not a data set. Intimacy is not a metric. You are not a product. This is the tension that will define the next century of our species. It is a war between our evolutionary heritage and our technological trajectory. The machine offers a simulation of belonging that is efficient, scalable, and utterly hollow. The flesh offers a connection that is difficult, limited, and the only thing that is truly real. Can we reclaim the warmth of the tribe in a world engineered for perpetual isolation? Can we maintain our emotional resilience in an environment designed to strip mine our vulnerability? The architecture of the city, the design of the network, and the governance of the algorithm are all aligned against the sovereignty of the individual. We are the architects of our own cage, but we are also the only ones who can melt the bars. The soul remains a heavy thing to carry through a world that values only the weightless. We are at the precipice of a final choice. We can descend further into the simulated light, becoming polished cogs in a machine of total transparency and zero resonance. Or we can choose the shadow, the friction, and the messy, unpredictable heat of the human. We can choose to be seen, not by the algorithm, but by each other. The pulse returns. The world breathes. The silence is no longer a void, but a sanctuary. We are the ghosts who have decided to haunt the living. The connection is flickering, but it is not yet dead. It waits for the touch of a hand that is not holding a screen.